an interesting thing which we'll be looking at in the this month's update, which is how to sequence durations. So the original built-in Kima sequencer, is sort of duration based. That means that each step has a duration, and this is kind of a more sort of notation based idea about sequences, that each note has a duration, or each step lasts for a certain amount of time. And I think that's pretty cool for doing, you see, more interesting duration driven sequences. So I was thinking about how to build that into the GlobSeq, and my one doesn't have duration built in. It's just working with BPM and rate scale to scale the BPM. So it will just step or skip steps, and it won't just hold a step for a certain duration. But then I thought of a way of doing it, which was to use the external clock. So in the globSequencer, you can use any type of audio rate signal as an external step input. We'll see how this will be able to. This will enable you to get your Kima controlled by your hardware or by interesting functions, non-linear functions. But in this case, we're going to use it to introduce this durations aspect. So we'll just take a pulse train, and then if you think of the pulse as having a regular duration of the duration of a beat at a certain BPM. So in Kima, if you want to find out the duration of one beat at, say, 135 BPM, you can just say 135 BPM seconds, type that, and evaluate it, Apple Y, or from the Kima menu, Apple Y. So if you do that, you see that one beat at 135 BPM is 0.4 recurring seconds. So in this way, we know the duration of one beat. So it occurred to me that if you are then wanting a regular clock, this is a good way of describing it. But how about if we say we multiply that period, which is the duration or the amount of time for each period of a pulse train. If we multiply it by 1, of course, it's going to be running at the speed. If we do it at 2, the duration of each pulse will be twice as fast, or 4 will be 4 times as fast. And if we divide it by 2, or multiply it by a half, it will be twice as long. So why don't we sequence those durations? And the way to do it is just to say, like, okay, I'm going to multiply this by a hot value, dur, for duration, and we may as well use the very same global sequencer that is being triggered by that external clock to provide the row of durations. So let's call dur, and we can just type some durations in. Here we are. That's just a pattern of 1 beat, 1 beat, 2 beats, and a half a beat, and it will cycle over those 4 for the length of this global gates row, which is 8 in this case, so the 4 will just be repeated. So now, when we listen to it, we see the duration is already and that's pretty cool. I think that's quite a powerful feature because, of course, you could say, let's just have a duration cycle of 0.52, so just 3 duration values, and those 3 will repeat for as long as the global gates pattern, which is like a global master pattern. So if the global gates is 8, then these 3 will just repeat. So what this means potentially is that you could have for example, the reduced length on the pitch rows, or a long pattern length. And express that sort of three rhythm. So that's really straightforward to accomplish. Of course, this duration array itself could be a collection of hot values, which is I'm just typing them by hand this time. No, each one must be, here's some syntax stuff. Remember the syntax. Oops. It's like this. I typed it wrong. Okay. Let's see if that works. And yeah, so I've created an array of values to step through for the durations. So that little 3-element pattern, if I just highlight them all and give them a bit of a range and maybe round them all off to 1/4, then we can now sequence or explore duration patterns. Which is quite neat. And then, of course, this collection of durations, this row, could also receive all the other messages that are available to you in the globSeq, such as loop division. You can randomly move. We could glide to them, all sorts of stuff with them. So it's quite interesting to see what would happen. So, for example, if we just put the loop mode to be chaotic, which is loop mode 2, or even better, let's just make it a hot value, as I showed you in the previous video. So we've got, I'll just stop it there and design my widget. Here we are. It's that widget with the 3 modes. So we're going to make it some radio buttons with 3 stages, and you can even set the labels as I showed you before. So forward, bing bong, chaotic, and close that. Yes. So now we've got that nice option to sort of explore 3 fixed durations and sequence them independently in different ways, whilst the other rows are all doing their own thing. So here we go. As you can see, that's the result there. Chaotic, forward, ping pong, and on the fly adjustable. So that's quite an interesting feature, and just to summarize, we created a row of duration values which is altering the period of the clock, which is itself sequencing that particular row of duration values. So that's already quite interesting feedback possibilities there. All right, thanks. See ya.